So today's article was submitted by Larry T. And it comes from one of our favorite websites, bold.com, which is home of, two of the TSR Hall of Shamers, Amy Horton and one Janelle Testa. Now, the article that was submitted, I'm going to go ahead and pull up the article right now. The article that was submitted was written by a woman who goes by Melanie Kernodle, and it is entitled, "Why Do All of the Good Guys Seem to Be Taken?" But I'm not going to talk about this article, and I'm about to tell you why. Not to worry, Larry, you're still getting the credit for this submission, because your article submission actually led to a much more telling article, which is going to shed a little bit of light on this. And stay with me here, guys, so I can explain what I'm talking about here and set this up properly. There are a couple of things that appear to be unique about Miss Kernodle relative to the other writers for this particular website. Number one, the title leaves her wide open for a red pill breakdown, and let me explain why. Feminist bloggers are now very careful about avoiding titles that give credence to red pill truth. These chicks know who we are and what we talk about, and one of the most ubiquitous cliches that we use to shame feminists are, "Where have all the good men gone?" We always say this about banana gobblers. And Melanie seems to have either thrown caution to the wind, or she's just unaware of the fact that when she asks this question, she does indeed out herself as a banana gobbler. The second and most noteworthy unique attribute that Melanie has is that she's actually fairly attractive. Look at your screen. I've replaced the picture. I've replaced the original picture of the article with a picture of Melanie. Based on this picture that you're seeing and her social media feeds, I'd probably put her between 29 and 31 years old, maybe a little older, give or take a few years in either direction. So she's hit the wall, but not too hard. By the same time, you can tell her best days are behind her in terms of looks. Now, she also appears to be in pretty good shape, and her face is fairly decent looking. Melanie is an attractive woman, guys. Let's just go ahead and keep it 100. She's not hot, okay? She's not a smoke show. But if we're all being honest, I think we can all be adult enough to say, not the best-looking female we've ever seen, but I wouldn't kick her out of bed, at least not before we did the dirty deed. Anyway, she doesn't appear to have any tattoos or piercings, though you never really know what she might be hiding under her clothes. But all in all, Melanie Kernodle doesn't look like your typical card-carrying militant feminist like Janelle Testa. So now the question becomes, why can't this attractive woman find a man? Why does this woman think that all of the good guys are taken when she clearly appears to be attractive enough to, at the very least, warrant some attention, right? I mean, it's obvious she's not invisible to men. So why is a woman like her, why does a woman who looks like her asking where all the good men have gone in so many words? Well, I did a little bit of digging, and I found an article published around the same time as this article, and it is entitled, "I Almost Left the Love of My Life Because of My Ego," which was also published 3 years ago. So she has two articles that she's written. One that asks where all the good men have gone, and another that talks about how she almost left the love of her life. You know what this means, right, guys? It means that she's no longer with the love of her life, because if the love of her life article published first, then the "Where Have All the Good Men Gone" article means really she was in a relationship but looking to branch swing. And if the Good Men article was published first, then she ended up leaving the love of her life, because why else would a woman ask, "Where have all the good men gone?" if she were still in a relationship with the love of her life? So the article that Larry T submitted led us to the article that is going to give us the answers as to why a woman as attractive as Melanie Kernodle isn't getting opportunities with high-value guys. So let's go ahead and get started here. She starts the article, she says, quote, "When you are in a relationship with someone for a few years, things can start to get stale if you're not careful. And this was happening with my guy, and I didn't even realize it. At some point, I let my ego grow so big that I almost left the love of my life. I was in a relationship with my potential forever person, but I thought I was so much better than him, and I almost lost him because of it. Here's how I let my ego get in the way and what you should do and what you should avoid doing at all costs if you want your relationship to last. So, right out of the gate, she starts to qualify her statement. A man is either the love of your life or he is not. And it's a safe assumption that when she wrote this article, she was still with him. Yet 3 sentences in, she qualifies the label and starts to hedge when she says potential forever person. So which is it, Melanie? Is he the love of your life or is he the potential love of your life? Because they are 2 very different things. Of course, now we know that he was Mr. Potential because they're not together anymore. So rather than looking at this article as the things that almost cost her a relationship, we are going to look at the things that actually did end her relationship. So let's go ahead and get to it here. Number 1. I thought I was too good for him. She continues, somehow my ego got the best of me, and I started thinking that I was way too good to be spending my time with him. He was great. He was a great, kind, loving guy, and honestly, the kind of guy any girl would kill to be with. But my ego told I hate when, dude, all these female writers need editors. But my ego told me I was the best thing since sliced bread, so I started to believe that I could do better. I told myself that I was so much better than him when in reality, I really didn't deserve his love. It wasn't just your ego that got the best of you. It was all of the attention you were getting from men. Women who have huge egos are women who get a lot of attention from men. It doesn't come from anywhere else but male sexual desire. But this is where women make one of the biggest mistakes of their lives. And I talk about this all the time. It is conflating sexual attraction for relationship attraction. I talk about this all the time. This is nothing new, right? At least not for men who are red pill aware. Melanie thought that because men wanted to have sex with her, that men also wanted to commit to her. Now, to be fair, she was in her 20s. And women in their 20s get both sexual attention, which leads to men also wanting to commit to her because they're trying to lock down a young female, as all men try to do. But that wasn't the only factor, guys. The other factor is our feminist culture. Our feminist culture glorifies women for literally nothing. If you have 2 X chromosomes, you're amazing. You're special. If you have 2 X chromosomes, you're unique. You are awesome. Well, why is she so amazing? She's just a woman. People might ask, oh my God, misogynist, she's amazing. Anytime you question a woman's amazingness or awesomeness, you're labeled a misogynist. Anyway. Girls in this country are taught from birth that they are the special otherworldly beings that deserve the world simply because they're girls, and it escalates from there. Then when they get with a guy, they're always thinking, can I do better than him? And the reason she does this is because she's been told she deserves the best of everything simply for showing up and existing. Then, of course, Miss Kernodle waxes poetic about how kind and loving her now ex-boyfriend was, and the kind of guy that any girl would kill to be with. She's lying. Not about the kind and loving part, but about girls killing to be with guys like this. Well, why wouldn't a girl want to be with a kind, loving guy? Because a man that a female describes as kind and loving, we know that is a man who is weak. Well, how do you know that? Well, let's go over a few things that women say they want in a man that are only exhibited by weak men. And again, you have to understand, feminism is to blame for this. I want a man who lets me be me. Translation, I want a man who allows me to walk all over him, misbehave, and disrespect him. I want a man who accepts me for who I am. Translation, I want a man who doesn't care that I'm fat, have a bad attitude, and cannot cook. I want a man who will respect my privacy. I want a man who stays out of my business. Translation, I want a man who makes it easy for me to cheat on him. So when Miss Kernodle talks about her kind and loving boyfriend, she's talking about a weak individual, which segues seamlessly into number 2. I gave my attention to other guys who wanted me. Oh boy, here we go. Here we go. She says, quote, I gave my attention to other guys. I'm sorry. She says, quote, I was in a serious relationship, but when other guys started hitting on me, I felt flattered. I liked it, and even though I knew it was wrong, I let them keep doing it because it made my ego feel better. I thought I was hot stuff because so many guys wanted my attention. I didn't stop to think how it would affect my relationship. I almost dumped the love of my life for some fling or one-night stand. Luckily, she says, I realized what I was doing and changed my actions before things got to a breaking point. And now, gentlemen, we are starting to understand why she's having trouble finding a man. She's a serial cheater, gentlemen, like most attractive American women. Do you see how she just dismisses commitment, guys? Do you see how she said, yeah, I was in a serious relationship, but when other guys started hitting on me, I was flattered. So even though she acknowledges that she was in a serious relationship, her female hindbrain, influenced by feminism, prioritized flattery from other men, even though she knew it was wrong. This kind of behavior, this just goes to show that today's women are just not capable of controlling their impulsiveness and need for validation. Not only can they not do it, they're not interested in it. They don't want to control these things. Even if they could control it, they wouldn't want to control it. They wouldn't do it. Then she tries to make us think that she actually regrets her actions by saying, I didn't stop to think about how it would affect my relationship. Sure you did. You said yourself you knew it was wrong, remember? So what she's trying to do here is she's trying to convince us that if she had stopped and thought, you know what? Sleeping with all these guys is probably not a good idea for my relationship, so I think I'd better stop. Then she would never have had all of those flings and one-night stands had she just stopped and thought. But not to worry, she stopped cheating just in the nick of time before things got to a breaking point. You mean like the 23-year-old who slept with her best friend's boyfriend that just magically woke up and realized that what she was doing was wrong? Or was it because she pissed a plus sign and knew she was a living, real-life episode on the Maury Povich show? And listen, you guys can go back and I forget what episode number that was, but that was hamster droppings galore. You guys definitely got to go check that out. So here is lesson number 1. Women never stop cheating because they realize what they're doing is wrong. They stop because they get caught or pregnant or something else. Short of those two things happening, women feel not 1 ounce of guilt for stepping out on their boyfriends and husbands. So any female who says she realized that she was doing what she was doing was wrong is telling you a half-truth. She only did the right thing when she got caught doing the wrong thing, as all American women do. Let's move to number 3. I took him for granted. She says, quote, why is it that when we get something really great, we take it for granted? I was so lucky to be dating one of the sweetest, greatest guys around, and all of my friends even told me so. But instead of feeling grateful, I made it seem like no big deal. I didn't appreciate all of the things he did for me on a daily basis and how much he cared for me. I let my ego take over, and I completely ignored all of the wonderful things this guy was doing in my life. A while back, I saw a meme on a Red Pill Facebook page or Twitter page, or maybe it was Instagram somewhere. I can't remember exactly. But it said something that is 100% true. And what it says is, quote, men socialize by busting each other's balls, which is making fun of each other, ribbing each other, etc. And women socialize by complimenting each other, and neither means it. Melody's friends all told her that she had an awesome boyfriend and that he was the sweetest, greatest guy. He was one of the sweetest, greatest guys around. But Melanie's friends also knew that Melanie's now ex-boyfriend was weak. Again, she used the language sweetest and greatest, and we defined what that really means a little bit earlier. Now, don't misunderstand me here, guys. I don't want you to get me wrong here. I'm not saying that her friends didn't mean what they said, but as females, they clearly understood who and what her now ex-boyfriend was. And I can also guarantee you that none of her friends had boyfriends like him because, guys, women just don't like weak men. Her friends were sleeping with the bad boy douchebags just like every attractive American woman in her 20s. And then, of course, she talks about all of the little things he did for her on a daily basis that showed her how much he cared about her, but then she wonders why she took it for granted and acted like it was no big deal. Well, the answer to her question is simple. The answer to, well, why did I take all of these things for granted? The answer to this is simple. Because he didn't make her earn it, gentlemen. This is the problem with today's men. Today's men reward their girlfriends and wives with gifts. They reward them with praise, trips. They reward them with all this other stuff for no other reason but that they're women who allow them to have sex with them on a regular basis. That's it. Dudes these days are so happy to just have a female who lets him have sex with her and pretends to be committed to him that they completely lose their minds and do dumb stuff like leave love notes on Post-it notes around the house. Having flowers delivered to her job just because. Telling her how great she is all the time and all the rest of that nonsense that Disney movies and The Bachelorette tells them that this is the way to keep a woman attracted to you. Well, inevitably, what ends up happening is that women take it for granted and they do not appreciate it. Why? Because she did not work for it. That's why. And as we all know, women only value what they are required to work for. This is why women don't respect the commitment of a man who gives it to her after a week and a half. She thinks to herself, dude, all I did was have sex with him a few times and he already wants me to meet his family? Like, what the hell is this guy's problem? Why does he want to commit too early? What's wrong with him? So here is lesson number 2. Never, and I mean never, deprive a woman of the privilege of working for your commitment. Gentlemen, I'm here to tell you, women want to work for your commitment because they want to know it's worth something. If you just give it to her for nothing, but just a few nights of sex, she's not going to value what you've given her. She's given everybody sex. She needs to give you something other than sex to value your commitment. Guys, stop buying your girlfriend's expensive gifts or taking her out on these extravagant dates just because she's your girlfriend. Stop leaving love letters or writing songs or poems or any of that other nonsense you see on TV. The best gift you can give your woman is your masculinity, your time, and your attention. That's it. Listen, those are the most valuable commodities you have. That's what women will work the hardest for. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that you should never reward your woman. There are times when I do reward Devin. I took her to Atlantic City a few weeks back because she was on a great streak. But I don't do it often, and I never do it for nothing. If you give a female something she has not earned, she's going to take it for granted, and she's going to act like it's no big deal, just like Ms. Kernodle. So if I'm keeping it all the way real here, I can't blame her for this. This one is on her ex. Number 4, I just stopped putting effort into our relationship. She says, quote, I let myself think that our relationship wasn't worth anything, and that's exactly how I started to treat it. I didn't put any effort into fixing our problems or changing my behavior. I simply let things slowly slide downhill. I stopped doing little things like saying, I love you, or giving him a kiss goodbye. I didn't even try to rekindle the passion that we had in the beginning of our relationship. Honestly, she says, I didn't care if everything we had gone up in flames because I was so involved with my ego and thinking I was the best. Not much to say here, really, because it just reinforces what I explained about what she said in number 3. And she verifies it by saying, I let myself think our relationship wasn't worth anything. She said it. When men treat women like queens, this is what happens. Guys, I will also reinforce what I say all the time. Those of you guys who watch me on the regular, you guys know this all the time. Never be the first to angle for a relationship first. That was redundant, but it's still true. When you're the first to broach the topic of exclusivity with a woman you're seeing, your leverage goes right out the window. You cannot set expectations. You cannot set boundaries. You cannot let her know what you will or will not tolerate when you commit first, when you angle for commitment first. You can't do any of that stuff. Her ex-boyfriend obviously made this mistake, and then he showered her with gifts and attention, which is exactly why she didn't feel like that she needed to put any effort in the relationship. Think about it. Why would a woman work for something she's already getting for nothing? Why would she make an effort to keep something that she was able to get in the first place with no effort? Here's another observation. The reason why she stopped doing the little things like kissing him goodbye and saying, "I love you," is because she was sleeping with other guys. She had lost attraction and respect for her boyfriend and started stepping out on him. Women can't fake the funk. Now, there are some diabolical women out there who can be sleeping with 2 other guys behind their boyfriend's back and still act like everything's okay. Now, of course, to a red pill aware man, we pick up on these things right away, but the average man doesn't pick up on this stuff. Even still, when your woman stops kissing you and telling you she loves you, something's up. At this point, it would behoove you to open your eyes. Guys, be sure to tune in to the Red Man group tomorrow morning at 11 Eastern. I will be hosting tomorrow's episode, and we will be joined by special guest Stefan Molyneux. Stefan is the host of the Free Domain Radio podcast and is a highly influential figure in political circles. He is also a confirmed speaker at the 21 convention in Orlando this October. I actually met Stefan in Orlando back in May at the 21 convention, Patriarchs Edition. I had no idea who he was at the time, which shows you guys I don't really follow politics until we're in an election year. Anyway, be sure to tune in this morning at 11 a.m. Eastern on the Red Man Group channel. We will be taking phone calls and answering questions. Good God, man. Listen, I swear to God, YouTube viewers, you guys are so ADD. This is no slight on you, but it's funny. As soon as I start to talk about anything but the topic, like I talk about Gorilla Mind Rush or my Patreon or anything else but the topic, dude, 50 viewers right out the door. It's like the viewership drops as soon as you stop talking about it. Part of the gig. Number 5, I told myself he wasn't worth my time. My ego made me believe that this guy wasn't worth my time because he wasn't some big shot, super successful businessman that I thought I deserved. I told myself that because of his background or his job title, he was below me, which is completely messed up. That's a terrible thing to think about anyone, especially the person that you are in a relationship with, and it makes me sick to even admit that I even thought that. Thankfully, I realized how wrong I was, and I managed to save my relationship and ditch my nasty ego. This is actually where she is completely wrong about feeling he wasn't worth her time, at least in this regard. Yes, he committed first, and yes, he gave her gifts and attention without making her work for it, which is another issue in and of itself, and again, we've already just covered that. But what Melanie is feeling guilty about is something she should not feel guilty about, and that is not being attracted to a man whose perceived value is lower than hers. I talked about this extensively on Monday's episode. That was the Rihanna episode. You guys have to understand this. A female's hard drive will not allow her to be attracted to or sexually aroused by a man whose perceived value is below hers. A woman can only truly love a man who is superior to her, or at least appears to be. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean he has to make more money than she does. A girl could make $50K a year. She can make $50,000 a year dating a man who only makes $35,000 a year. But if he's the lead singer of a popular local band, then he has status, he's got social proof, and he's got pre-selection, which more than makes up for the $15,000 difference in what they make annually. Here's another example. That same girl could be dating a guy who only makes $25,000 a year. But if this guy is 6'4" with washboard abs, has a square jaw, 5 o'clock shadow, and all the rest of that, the attention he gets from other women more than makes up for that $25,000 gap in what they make. Ms. Kernodle is a victim of feminism attempting to reprogram her hard drive, and it didn't work. The culture says that women should love men regardless of their value, but it doesn't work that way, nor should it. Just like men aren't sexually attracted to women who are beautiful on the inside but look like Janelle Testa on the outside. It doesn't work that way, nor should it. I say this all the time. Hypergamy is a good thing for men. It helps us keep ourselves together. Melanie thinking that he wasn't worth her time because his perceived value was lower than hers doesn't make her a terrible person, guys. It makes her a woman. So here's lesson number 3. The sexual marketplace, gentlemen, doesn't give a damn about what's fair and what's not. It really doesn't. It doesn't care that you're short. It doesn't care that you're balding. It doesn't care that you have a face only a mother could love. It could not give less of a damn. Men are drawn to youth and beauty, and women are drawn to status and resources. That's always the way it's been, and that's always the way it will be. As I take a swig of water here. Men who check out of the dating market because they're too lazy to increase their value in areas they have control over are just like women who give up on men because they're too lazy to hit the gym. You hear these girls all the time. Well, oh man, they want these twigs. All they want are perfect 10s. No, we don't. We don't want or need perfect 10s. We just want you to be fit. Right? Again, the difference between an attractive woman and an extremely beautiful woman, an attractive woman, maybe she was born not so lucky, right? Maybe she's a butterface. Maybe her face is below average. But if she hits the gym and stays fit, she could still have any man she wants to. Devon's a 7. She's a 6.5 in the face, but she's got the body of an 8.5 or a 9. She is an attractive woman. Devon is not beautiful, but she is highly sexually attractive. There is a difference. You don't have to be beautiful to lock down a man of value. All you have to be is sexually attractive. Fortunately for women, becoming sexually attractive is under their control. But again, if they're too lazy to hit the gym, then they want to blame the male id. Cry me a river. Number 6. Other people told me I was better than him. Some people even validated the nasty thoughts that my ego was telling me. When I look back now, I know that most of these people weren't really my friends and they really didn't have my best interests in mind when they were telling me that. But that didn't stop me from believing them at the time. That's because it was easy to believe what you already believe. This is them reinforcing what you think. She continues, because what they were saying made my ego even bigger. I believed them and let it blind me to how great a guy I really had. Oh, good God. Guys, she just contradicted herself like all women do. So she says that her friends told her that she was better than he was. But then earlier, she said, I was so lucky to be dating one of the sweetest, greatest guys around, and all of my friends told me so. So which is it? Did your friends tell you that you were better than him, or did they tell you that he was the greatest guy ever? Well, the answer is that it doesn't matter. Okay? What Melanie is doing here is what all women do when it comes to rationalizing their bad behavior. And that, of course, is blame shifting. Miss Gernodal wants us to think that she has all of these wonderful friends because, of course, a woman who has a bunch of wonderful friends validates her as a person and gives her social proof. But then, by the same token, she wants us to think that her friends led her astray by telling her that she was better than her ex. She wants us to think that her friends blew up her ego, which indirectly removes part of her responsibility. And remember, guys, at this point, she wants us to think that she almost left the love of her life. But again, we know she's not with him anymore, so she ended up leaving him anyway. And by the way, guys, she keeps using the word ego. But that's not the reason she blew up her relationship, gentlemen. She blew up her relationship because A, she's the typical American female who gobbled bananas all through her 20s, and B, her boyfriend had a lower perceived value than she did. So her ego didn't end this relationship. Her relationship was ended by promiscuity and hypergamy, and that's all there is to it. Number 7, my ego turned me into someone I didn't even like. She says, quote, because I had such high opinions of myself and thought I was so awesome, I became someone who did things that I would have normally never done. I started talking about myself too much. I wanted attention from guys, and I wasn't acting like someone that is loving, caring, and humble. When I finally took a step back, she says, and looked at what I had been doing, I realized I was turning into someone who was capable of cheating on their boyfriend, and that definitely was not someone I ever wanted to be. And it finally shook me enough to realize how much damage I was doing to my relationship and the man I really loved. No, sweetheart. You didn't turn into someone you didn't like. You were always this way. And so are most women. Girls always talk about themselves too much. Girls always want attention from guys. Young, attractive women are anything but loving, caring, and humble because they don't have to be. At least, not to the nice guys. To bad boys, oh yeah, they're all of these things. And to say that she was never capable of cheating, this is disingenuous because, again, she was always this way. Gentlemen, don't fall for this. Women like her want us to think that they're like Melanie. She wants us to think that she was this paragon of virtue who would never be selfish or solipsistic. She wants us to think that she was this loving, caring, humble female who would never succumb to all of the male attention and step out on her man. But she was always this way, and she knows it. Guys, I've never seen, I guess what you would call retroactive snowflaking before. But here she is trying to convince us that she acted completely out of character when she conducted herself the way that she did. Suffice it to say, I ain't buying it. And I'm pretty sure you guys don't either. Number 8. I didn't see how our relationship was falling apart. As I let my ego grow, she said, and kept thinking about how awesome I was and how much more I deserved, I didn't realize that my relationship was falling to pieces all around me. I didn't see that the intimacy started to fizzle out. That hour conversations, because forced and depressing. Guys, and again, you guys can look at this. I copy and paste this to my notes. It's just unbelievable how much, listen, not to be a grammar Nazi, but this just proves that women they never do anything completely. Anyway, that our conversations became forced and depressing, and I definitely didn't see how much it was affecting him and hurting him. Actually, she says, when I think about it, maybe I did see all of those things, but my ego told me to ignore them. Did you see how she tried to act like she didn't see that she was hurting her boyfriend, but then she kept it real in the end and admitted that she did see these things, but decided to ignore them? Guys, she absolutely saw what was happening. She just didn't care. And that's all there is to it. But let's rewind it a little bit here, guys. Let's just rewind it and take stock, because I've noticed something here. If you're paying attention, you're starting to see that this entire article is one giant blame shift. She keeps blaming her bad decisions on her ego. Melanie is not saying I ignored them. She's saying my ego told me to ignore them, as if to say it is something outside of herself telling her what to do. If you guys remember earlier, she said, my ego made me believe. My ego made me believe that this guy wasn't worth my time. I let my ego take over. You guys picking up on how she's trying to distance herself from her ego? As if her ego is its own separate, independent entity, separate from her, that makes its own decisions and influences her? The title of the article is, I almost left the love of my life because of my ego. Guys, she's blaming her ego for the demise of her relationship. She never takes responsibility herself. She isn't saying, I cheated on him, or I was a bad girlfriend. No, she keeps saying, my ego told me to cheat on him. My ego told me to be a terrible girlfriend. Guys, Miss Kernodle is not taking responsibility for her actions. She's blaming her ego. And she talks about her ego in such a way that implies that it's almost another person when you think about it. Seriously, the way she describes her ego, you would think that it's a completely separate person from her. Now, I'll give her full marks for the way she's doing this. Rationalization hamster or not, guys, I have never seen this level of blame shifting. But this is why you have to pay attention to what women say and read between the lines, because if you don't, you could be sitting in front of a woman giving you this same story in the same way or something like it. But instead of holding her accountable for her actions, you subconsciously absolve her because she's done such a great job separating herself from her ego, which makes you think that she was just an innocent bystander while her big bad ego controlled her mind and made her do all those horrible things that she wouldn't normally do. You guys have to pay attention. Number 9. I thought I could break hearts and not get caught. Oh, man. She says, quote, I made myself believe that I was so awesome and so invincible that it wouldn't matter if I broke his heart. I went around acting like I was the best thing in town and not caring how it hurt my partner. I seriously thought I was invincible, that nothing could stop me from doing what I wanted. I was so wrong. Not only did my actions hurt him, they also hurt me. What she's describing here, gentlemen, is her abundance mindset back then compared to her scarcity mindset today. And let me explain what this means. When she was in her 20s, Melanie didn't care about breaking hearts. Why? Because there was always going to be another guy she could branch swing to. Who cares if she gets caught cheating? Who cares if her ex-boyfriend tells everyone she cheated and she's disloyal? She was still young and pretty enough for guys to dismiss these things. Like anything else in life, guys, and we all know this, the more valuable you are, the more people are willing to sort of tolerate your baggage. The more talented the receiver is, like Antonio Brown, the more tolerant the Raiders are to him getting frostbite on his feet or filing a BS grievance to the NFL about his helmet as a ruse to miss training camp and take the attention off of his feet. The better a salesperson you are, the more willing your employer and supervisors will be to sort of look the other way when you're late 3 days a week, or that you don't come to all of your meetings, or that occasionally you're a no-call, no-show. You come in and you put numbers on the board, you're the number one salesman, they're going to tolerate these things. This woman could break hearts and not pay the price back then. But now that she's in her 30s, she is experiencing those consequences. Guys are not as willing to put up with her inflated sense of entitlement because that's really what her ego is. Right? They're not willing to put up with that as much as they did in their 20s. Just like when the Cincinnati Bengals didn't offer Terrell Owens a contract extension at the end of his career because he wasn't as productive anymore. But the Dallas Cowboys signed him, even though he had blown up the locker room here in Philly, because then he was still one of the best receivers in the league. Young pretty girls can get away with just about anything when they're young and pretty. But as soon as they hit the wall, dudes don't give them as much leeway, guys, if really anything at all. Melanie Kernodle was invincible in her 20s. Invincible. But now in her 30s, not so much. Let's move to number 10. My perspective clouded my judgment. From where I stood, she says, the relationship was looking pretty sad and I thought I deserved better. So I let that perspective convince me that I could do things that I wouldn't normally do. Here we go with that again. I flirted with other guys and I was careless about being honest with my partner. I thought I was in a crappy relationship and really I was the one being crappy. If only I changed my perspective, I would have seen how much I was ruining the best relationship of my life. Good thing I finally got a grip on reality and realized what I was doing before I let the whole thing blow up in smoke. I am so grateful, she says, that I didn't, because I am still with that guy and he is seriously the love of my life, and I never want my ego to get in the way of our relationship again. There she goes with the blame shifting this time. But this time it wasn't her ego that made her do it. This time it was her perspective. She said, I let that perspective convince me I could do things I wouldn't normally do. No, sweetheart. You convinced yourself you could do things that you always do. Again, guys, she's trying to make us think that she's this decent woman just filled to the brim with moral fiber until her big bad perspective seduced her into flirting with other guys and cheating on her boyfriend. Clearly things that she would never normally do. Get out of here with that. Now, to her credit, she does start to take a little bit of accountability by actually owning the fact that she could have changed her perspective, but this was by accident. Because then she says she would have seen that she was ruining her relationship as if to imply that she was just completely blind to the fact that she was being a terrible girlfriend. So she kind of took that back. She started to give accountability and then she put the blame back on the perspective. Then she says, well, it's a good thing I got a firm grip on reality. That's not what happened. Sweetheart. Dude, he may have caught her cheating, which shocked her back into reality. She may have had a pregnancy scare or may have actually gotten pregnant and got an abortion, and that shook her enough to make her stop cheating. I mean, it could be any number of things. We'll never know. So while I don't know, and no one will ever know what really made her snap out of it, I know what didn't, and that is her. Like I said before, guys, women never stop bad behavior because they just all of a sudden realize the error of their ways. It's usually something that prevents them from getting away with whatever they are doing. And because they don't want to be alone, because they don't want to get dumped by their boyfriends, then they stop. And guys, I just love how she went hyperbolic and said that he is seriously the love of her life. He is seriously the love of her life. That's elevated. Guys, that's a telltale sign that he seriously is not. Which leads me to lesson number 4. Anytime a woman describes herself as happily married, she most certainly is not happily married. Right? Women who say things like he is seriously the love of my life or I am happily married, they're not trying to convince you. They're trying to convince themselves, which is exactly why they use hyperbolic adjectives when describing their relationships. Dude, straight up, man, if I had a nickel for every wife I slept with who told me she was happily married, I'd have a lot of nickels. Then, of course, right there at the end, she removes blame from herself one more time for good measure by saying that she'll never let her ego get in the way of her relationship again, as if to imply that her ego is separate from her. Well, we now know that her ego reared its ugly head again because they are not together anymore. So now we know why an attractive woman or mildly attractive woman like Melanie Kernodle is asking where all the good men have gone. And it's because she's a serial cheater and a hyper entitled. And the men she wants, they're just not going to deal with that anymore. They're just not going to.